Okay, good evening and welcome to the September 11, 2024 meeting of the Town of Plymouth, Massachusetts Advisory and Finance Committee at the Great Hall of Town Hall, Plymouth. We'll go right to the call to order of our committee members. When you hear your name, please say here. If you're not here, please stay silent. Ms. Butler, are you here?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Lally?
Yes.
Mr. Lawler?
Here.
Mr. Malaguti? Ms. O'Connor?
Here.
Mr. Pizarro? I see
Here.
you. Thank you. Ms. Richards?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Ms. Tompkins? And she's in another meeting, but will be joining us shortly. And Mr. Wright said he would not be here this week. Okay. And I have to read the disclaimer as we do at every meeting, so. Didn't see him. Did I miss him? Everett, are you on Zoom? I see you, but I don't hear you. You're on mute.
Yes,
There
I
you go.
am.
Are you here, Mr. Malaguti?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Okay. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format with some of the members here in the hall. And as you can see, some of our members are participating through the Zoom call. This meeting will be airing on Comcast 9, Verizon 47, and on PAC TV's YouTube channel, which can be viewed at pactv.org/stream. The ground rules here are any speaker giving public comment is allotted up to 5 minutes in which to speak. Public comment can be made at the beginning or the end of each meeting, or in regard to a particular agenda item that the speaker wishes to be heard on. Anyone who wishes to attend this meeting virtually may do so, including members of the public, by going through Zoom. You can use the Zoom app or the website, zoom.us. And our meeting code, you can hit join meeting, and our meeting code is 995-2986-0638. That's 995-2986-0638. And our meeting passcode is 100131. You can also join by telephone. We'll hear your voice only. We will not see you. And that number is 929-205-6099. It's 929-205-6099. Enter meeting code 995-2986-0638 and enter meeting password 100131. Having said that, the views of the members of this committee are their own opinions and do not necessarily reflect the majority view of this committee. I'll start adding that to our meetings now, which we have not done before. So as long as I have a live mic in front of me, I wanted to set the record straight on a little bit of misinformation that came out of the select board meeting yesterday. So the presenter was trying to make a point about the process of appointing members to our committee here. And the presenter and made it a point that last week I did announce that there was a vacancy on our committee, which is true. There was an emergency, a work emergency, and our member had to immediately drop off our committee. But this presenter went on to say that last night that we had already appointed a new member on our committee, and that is absolutely not true. And I know that's not true because I was actually interviewing a candidate yesterday morning and asked that candidate to go home and think about all the work and the time commitment that goes into being a member of our committee. And so, no, we have not appointed a new member yet, but I'm sure we'll let everybody know as soon as that happens. I also wanted to compliment Select Board Member Bletzer, who did say that our committee was one of the most, probably the most important committee in the town, and that he relies pretty heavily on the information that we pull up, which is what our job is, to vet out articles to help the select board. But I did want to take him to task about one thing, about our selection process, and it's not perfect, but I wanted to remind him that we have a 15-member committee, and in 15 members, there is a chance that one of those members doesn't work out quite as we had anticipated. And I also want to remind Mr. Select Board Member Bletzer that he's on a committee of 5, and they don't always get it right either, and that's the voters that are voting. So the voters don't always get it right, and we can probably go back and have, I don't want to have a discussion here, but I'm sure we could agree that there are some select board members that didn't quite work out, Mr. Bletzer, as you or your colleagues thought they would. So just like to give you some food for thought tonight. Okay, any questions so far? Excellent. Are there any members of the public who would like to start us off with a comment? If you would like to, the floor is yours. Please stand up. Give us your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for hearing us.
Put the green light on.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Steve Lantang from 21 Baldwin Circle. My family's been a neighbor of the residents for 37 years. Lack of transparency, honesty, oversight, and accountability with the Airport Commission is why we're here. My wife and myself became involved with the airport expansion back in March, a few days after learning about the airport expansion. Even today, many residents don't even know about it, or ones that did learn about it believes that the expansion has stopped because the funding was denied last spring meeting. But it has not. You will be asked to approve additional funds related to the expansion. Today, just like back in March, all we have are a lot of questions, concerns, assumptions, and confusion. We pray to God we are wrong on a lot of them. It has been 6 months, and the Airport Commission has yet responded to the initial list of questions and concerns that they were given before the spring annual town meeting. Their only responses have been the expansion is for safety, to increase safety is what they keep saying. In March, the selectmen advised the Airport Commission to create an airport advisory board. Since March, all the Airport Commission continues to claim is that when the board is created, they will answer our questions. And we thought that's why they were the Airport Commission, for the expertise and experience. Recently, we asked the selectmen, the Airport Commission, and others if the Airport Commission could do a runway expansion without any town funding. And the common answer was, well, we don't know, I don't think so, and that's where our concern came in, and that's why we had originally submitted the article for a moratorium to let the town vote on it. We cannot have a few people in the back room at the airport making decisions for all of us, for the entire town, for the future of our town. Why 5,001 feet? They claim it's all about safety. Let's use the analogy that Ken Fostick, the chair of the commission, said previously, telling the selectmen at the selectmen's meeting, the annual town meeting, and the airport meetings. It's all about increasing safety. It's like painting new lines and adding guardrails on the highway. What they neglected to say, they're doubling the speed limit. Just like they are claiming that increasing the runway length is for safety. Yet, the 2 current supersized mid-jets, the Falcon 2000s, that are already based here will be able to carry more fuel and payload with the expansion. Does that make sense to everyone? It appears the Airport Commission has been misleading all of us in the real reason for the expansion. It appears it's all about money from increased jet activity. Per the FAA in Section 5.2 of the Airport Master Plan, quote, runway 624 currently meets all FAA safety requirements in accordance with AC 150-5300-13B. Although increasing the length of the runway pavement will in turn increase safety margins, the current runway length is not unsafe for the aircraft adhering to their capacities. They also neglected to tell us what is stated in the Massachusetts Airport System Plan, Section 2.1, in quoting, "in hopes to provide a significant value to business and corporate activity, as most corporate type of aircraft can operate in and out of airports having at least 5,000 feet. These type of corporate private jets are of the size of the super mid-sized jets like the Falcon 2000 that are currently there. They claim the Airport Master Plan, the projection of jet activity in the future only shows a slight increase of 2 jets per week by 2031, or approximately 1.5 planes per day by 2041. In their agenda, if their agenda was truly about adding safety to the margins of the current aircraft already there, wouldn't it have been prudent to maybe making both runways 100 feet longer, 200 feet longer? So they are both safer under the different weather conditions of why they use 2 different runways. The proposed expansion flies directly over the largest noise-sensitive area of homes and will make the runway of choice for the jets, 624. Before making things worse and irreversible, changing our hometown forever, all we have been asking for is transparency and honesty. We'd like them to be open and honest with all the reasons and facts, and then we can discuss and debate rationally and respectively. Let's try to balance any perceived increase in money aspect with the concerns of all the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latagnan. I'm checking in Ms. Tompkins at 711. You are present. Okay, yes, ma'am. Please tell us your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lantang. I live at 21 Baldwin Circle in Plymouth, and I've been a resident of Plymouth for 37 years. If you will indulge me, I just want to play a little soundbite for you of the jets that go over our house, and the circling planes from the flight schools. Last one's a jet. The sounds you just heard are what we hear over our homes daily. We can't finish sentences in our backyards. We must close our windows to work from home. Our children and grandchildren run into our homes crying, frightened of the low and loud flying planes. The dynamic of this airport has changed dramatically over the last 2 years, from a recreational airport with small single-engine planes and gliders to an airport taxi service for the wealthy with their Falcon 2000-sized jets that do not belong in this airport. And now they have multiple flight schools adding to air traffic and circling around our house over and over and over in their patterns of 5 and 6 times, fly away, come back 5 and 6 times, fly away. We fear the possible water contamination of our sole source aquifer and fears that our homes and environment are being ruined. We are losing our peace of mind. The tax base of the town will be harmed if people are losing value in their homes in West Plymouth. Nobody wants to live next door to the Plymouth Airport with the issues that we have right now, let alone with runway expansion and more hangars. It will generate a lot of bad publicity for the town. Has anyone evaluated that as part of our economic plan? Just look at every other airport. There have been hundreds of studies for decades. Neighborhoods and homes around airports' values are affected. One of the most common factors that is used is percent of depreciation per decibel level of noise. Miles Standish State Forest. People come from all over to see the nature and the beauty of Miles Standish, to camp, to hike, to swim in our ponds. That will change when they can no longer enjoy the peace and quiet of the forest without jets flying overhead or circling airplanes from the flight schools. Safety. How are the smaller planes safer when these jets are competing with their airspace? The airport says that there will possibly be an increase in flights with the expansion. How do they even know that? How can they project when they don't even count their planes that are coming in and out of the airport right now? Where's the data? Takeoffs, landings, touch and goes. The airport doesn't count planes unless it's a plane landing over 8,000 pounds, I think they said. The flight schools don't count takeoffs and landings or touch and goes. The planes and jets can turn off their ADS-B transponders so they can't be identified or counted in their flights. Mismanagement. Now they have allowed the Falcon 2000 sized jet here. They are currently supposed to land and take off with only 30% payload. Who monitors that? Who can control that? Community input. The airport manager and commission have done nothing to improve relations with the neighbors. Town meeting and the select board both advised them to do that. Our concerns are treated with disrespect. The airport consistently tells us, once a plane is up in the air, it's out of our hands. So why do they want to bring more traffic that they can't control, they can't count, and they can't manage? I'm not against the airport. I know we moved near an airport. In 1987, moving here, we found this airport unique and that it was surrounded by residential homes, a church, a high school, Miles Standish State Forest. Now there are daycare centers, 2 large over 55 communities, and local businesses, and West Rec, a little playground that these planes are circling over. The airport was here first, we get that, but the neighbors were here before the first runway expansion. In 2000, and then 2011, and now in 2024, they want to expand again to accommodate the jets. When is enough enough? Our warrant article, we were trying to give some control to the Plymouth residents. It was barred from town meeting by town legal counsel stating that Mass DOT and FAA laws govern our municipal airport. Are there no town bylaws protecting this town from the airport's activities? Maybe we need to look into that. Until we see a change, documentation is what is really happening at this airport. What can we do? Not one more penny towards the funding of this expansion. We ask you to vote no to funding Article 5, $1,099, local share of the environmental assessment. Vote no to funding Article 6, $5,000, local share of the environmental assessment. We started a website, my husband and I, to communicate to the public what was going around in this airport because the airport won't do it. Our website is www.takebackourplymouthairport.org.
Okay, your 5 minutes
Okay.
is over.
Thank
I've given you a little bit more.
Thank
but
you.
Thank you, Ms.
I appreciate it.
Lantang, for your comments. Do we have any other public comment? Please, tell us your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Hillary Gibbons. My address is 21 Sioux Shaw Way. 12 years ago, I began teaching in Plymouth, and my husband and I decided this was a community where we wanted to raise our family. We moved in 10 years ago. We spoke to neighbors about the airport, who told us there wasn't a big impact from the airport in noise. We loved the woods, the pond, the park. Even recently, we put in a pool and had plans drawn up for an addition because we envisioned ourselves remaining in this community. We now have 3 young boys who will soon be 7, 5, and 2. I am here today because for the first time in 10 years, this spring was the first time that we have ever filed a noise complaint. We now have significant concerns about the airport and specifically the flight schools and the noise and pollution it brings to our community. The flight school completely disregards the noise abatement, and it seems as though there is absolutely no control over this. Planes now fly directly over our house every other minute of the day, sometimes every minute. It truly feels like harassment. In the June Select Board meeting, when commission members were reelected, a member of the Select Board stated that neighbors are being heard because the expansion was turned down. I am very concerned about the future development of the airport, but I am also concerned about the current issues. We are not being heard on those issues. At the June meeting, the commissioners were asked the question about how they would improve the relationship with neighbors. Tom Hurley explained the noise abatement. There are noise-sensitive areas and quiet hours. He explained that the flight school and visitors are made well aware of the noise abatement. Karen Goulian mentioned that the lines might need to be redrawn due to development. This might be true. However, the current areas on the map and the current quiet hours are not being respected already. In the 48, maybe 60 hours surrounding this meeting, I found multiple examples of the noise abatement not being followed. I sent these examples in a letter to the Select Board. I received no response from the Select Board, which is frustrating after they claimed that they believe neighbors are being heard. I resent that email and still have heard nothing. The noise abatement is voluntary, so what power does that even hold? There is no protection for the neighbors of the airport. I attended the Airport Commission meeting where Ken Fosdick told me that all of the members live in the town too, but that they need to take the emotion out of it. The well-being of my family comes first, so I'm not sure why I'd be asked to take the emotion out of it. My family comes before my job, and it certainly comes before my hobbies. I've met with Matt Cardillo one-on-one, and I appreciate the time that he's taken to meet with me and explain about the airport. It's a friendly meeting, but this is his job, and this is my home. I have been told that there has been no change in airport traffic or flight patterns, even though the amount of noise complaints, what they used to receive yearly, they are now receiving monthly. Matt said that legally there's nothing he can do, but they are telling the public that they're working with neighbors. I am not sure what that is, except for the plan to form a committee. However, that committee won't have any power, so it sounds like a way of appeasing us. Although I have many concerns with the development of the airport, environmental issues, health issues, and increase in the number of jets, which has already increased significantly, my family's biggest issue right now is the noise and pollution, specifically from the flight schools, some of which use leaded fuel. Again, although supposedly there has been no increase to airport traffic and no change to the flight pattern, planes are taking off directly over my home every 1 to 2 minutes before the sound of the previous plane even fades away. I have videos to share with you of planes constantly going over. This is absolutely a change. In fact, we used to go to Plain Jane's to see the planes because we did not see them very often. No one is keeping a record of the flight school's takeoffs and landings, not the airport and not the flight school. I have asked for this data, and the response from both is that there is no data on takeoffs and landings. Just recently at a previous meeting, the flight school owner explained that he's tracking hourly how long they go out, but that they are not tracking takeoffs and landings, which is significantly different. The flight school has multiple planes out at once every single day of the week, which are often performing touch and goes. They take off and land over and over again. There is not a minute of silence at my house anymore. I have many screenshots of the flight pattern, and they are doing loops, 10 to 15 loops in a half an hour span. The noise is absolutely destroying my mental health. With 3 young boys, we spend most days outside all day. On Father's Day, I took my 1-year-old and went for a drive because I couldn't take the sound of another plane. On Labor Day, when our extended family was visiting, I called the flight school, and they told me they could not change the current lesson plan, but would let the planes know later in the day. By that time, I wouldn't have my family over anymore. If the flight school and airport are making an effort with neighbors, why are they designing a lesson plan around touch and goes on Labor Day and over the neighboring communities that are in the noise-sensitive areas on the noise abatement? My older boys and I read Harry Potter outside this summer and constantly had to pause for every plane. This past Thursday night, my family tried to eat dinner outside. I recorded the entire dinner. In 15 minutes, 8 planes flew directly over. I can't hear my kids tell me about their day, and this is a normal occurrence. We used to eat every meal outside when it was nice out. Since the beginning of the spring, we have been unable to enjoy a quiet Saturday or Sunday family breakfast, lunch, or dinner outside. We typically don't try anymore.
Ms. Gibbons, your 5 minutes is up. I can give you 1 more minute if you would like. If you
Okay.
want more, I'll have to have the committee vote on it.
Sure. Just yesterday morning, or Sunday morning, a plane woke us up at 7 a.m. I have videos of my son crying, running over to me because of the planes going over the house. I know it sounds dramatic, but this is how it's impacting my family. I'm one of many families that live in the neighborhood. Just tonight at West Rec, I took screenshots of every single plane that flew over in an hour span. They were flying over every single minute over the teams practicing at West Rec. It's just awful, and it feels like torture constantly listening to noise over our home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gibbons, for your comments. Any other public comment at this point? Okay, hearing and seeing none.
May I speak?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm on Zoom.
We
I don't
do
know how
have
to
this. Ms.
raise my
Hanlon, are
hand.
you- Is that who you are?
Yes, Jennifer Hanlon.
Yes, thank you. And your address, please, ma'am?
Yes, I also live on Sushala Way, number 17. I grew up here. My parents built the house in 1979, and yes, the airport was here. It was a small airport with glider planes that we would ooh and ah over. My husband and I bought our first home together on West Pond Road in 2005. And my folks still owned this home on Sushala, and family was everything. We would come over here for dinners. We'd be here for cookouts every weekend, sitting by the pool every weekend. If I had known that it would be this bad when we bought the home in 2016, I probably would have had to give up our family home. We have both been, we were both extremely familiar with the airport activity at the time and where the neighborhood was in all of Plymouth. We both grew up in Plymouth, born at the former Jordan Hospital, now BIDP. If we had an issue, if we had a concern with maybe a low-flying plane or a noise, we would call Tom Mayer, the former manager of the airport, and he would rectify it. He would contact the pilot, he would get back to you, and he would educate us. He would tell us it wouldn't happen again, that he's spoken to the pilot. At one of the very first meetings regarding this expansion, the Airport Commission mentioned that the runway would be lengthened to accommodate a particular private jet size. We were told it would allow this jet to take off and land with more weight. So more luggage, more people, and more fuel. One particular type of jet. We were told this would draw in more private jets of this size. Now they say they can't project how many more jets there will be, that they do not project that there will be that much of an impact in the next 20 years. In the meantime, Mr. Cardillo had been interviewed by I think it was called the Cape and Plymouth Business. And in there it says the proposal of the expansion includes the possibility of extending one of the two runways, which would allow for an increase in the number of small charter jets. There's no transparency with this airport commission. There is no transparency with the manager. We are dealing with nonstop noise from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. or later. In June, a jet did touch and goes for over an hour after 9 p.m. over our homes in West Plymouth. And there was a flight school or a plane at the same time that was also practicing touch and goes after 9 o'clock for over an hour. These planes that the flight schools use leaded aviation fuel, and they are circling our homes and West Rec and schools and places where people gather, our cranberries, our ponds, and our water. And everyone wants to know why neighbors are complaining now. Very few people knew of this expansion when they started this proposal 2 years ago or so. There was no communication to neighbors. There was nothing in the mail. There were no phone calls. They know where we all live. They have our addresses. There was no communication whatsoever. We saw it on a rogue Facebook post that was buried on their Facebook page, which to me is no way to advertise to the public. That's called social media. People got wind of it and people started speaking up because people don't want the expansion. And now when we call, we had petitioned, we had had letters signed and sent to the select board, state officials, the commission, and the manager. We haven't received any official responses. We asked for more of a say, more transparency. We had asked for testing. We're getting, we've had no answers to really any of that. I'm sorry, and the noise abatement was changed in February after they started hearing from neighbors about the noise. They went ahead and changed the noise abatement guidelines without the input of neighbors. You now call the airport with a complaint and you get, or even a question, and you get a voicemail. You have to leave a message. So God forbid there is a safety concern of a plane overhead. There's no way to contact anybody at the airport.
30
Nobody answers
seconds,
the
Ms.
phone.
Hanlon.
We just are asking that the town stop financially supporting the airport. Do not allow this expansion, and please protect the residents, the taxpayers of Plymouth. And I think I mimic exactly what Hillary and Lisa and Steve have said, with everything about how low they fly, how often they fly. I could verbatim of what they said. This is just an extension onto their comments, really.
Okay, your time has expired. I can give you another minute if you would like, or if you would like longer.
No, I
or we'll
appreciate
have
it.
to go
Honestly, I could talk about this for over an hour. So I hope you got I hope you got the gist of how we all feel.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hanlon, for sharing your time and your thoughts
I
with
thank
us,
you.
and to the other members of the public here that came here to have their voices heard. You have been heard. Okay, any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, let's get to work. Agenda items. Annual town meeting, article review, Article 5 to amend Article 9A30, the annual town meeting 2022. And before I introduce Matt Cardillo, the airport manager, I'll just read to you that we are going to be voting on, will the town vote to amend Article 9A30 of the 2022 April annual town meeting to increase the local share of the airport environmental assessment by $1,099 as previously amended to a new total of $19,849, or take any other action relative thereto. Just a short background. Due to the increase in the scope of the work needed to complete the environmental assessment, the Airport Commission has been required to complete an AE or EA Phase 2. This increase in cost would mean an increase in the local share of 5%. The total amount that would need to be appropriated to bring the local share up to meet the new cost would be an increase of $1,099. This would come from the airport's free cash. Now, for the new members in our committee and for the public, there are 5 enterprise funds in the town of Plymouth. The airport is one of them. The airport is a fully funded it funds itself on its own. Basically, a majority of the revenue comes from the sale of fuel to private pilots, and then they use that revenue to pay expenses. So this is not money that comes from the taxpayers. It comes from a small enterprise, which would be called the airport. So without further ado, Matt Cardillo, airport manager.
Thank you to the chair, and yeah, you spoke on that pretty well. When it comes to the EA, that increases the $1,099, and what happened or what progressed and made us, or we're in this phase 2 now, is to address some of the comments and concerns from MEPA, the state environmental agency, FAA, and the EPA. So there was some comments and questions back from the original EA, and this scope was increased, and we're now answering those questions through this EA Phase 2 and submitting that sometime this fall for approval by the FAA and by MEPA.
So again, this is not a request from the taxpayers. It is a request that needs to be approved as an enterprise fund by the town meeting. That's why Mr. Cardillo was before us. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Dunn, the floor is yours.
I don't know if this is the appropriate one or the next one is, but I'm going to ask it now. Do you have any reaction to what was just said by residents who have been obviously troubled by a lack of communication and a lack of being able to get a hold of anyone, when it seems like in the past they have been able to get a hold of people, especially regarding safety concerns and about noise outside of time when there should be noise? It seems like there's a lot of issues that just came up, and I just want to give you the opportunity to address those concerns that were raised at this meeting.
Would the chair allow, or?
I'm not sure that that's on topic right now. I mean, if you want to bring that up at a later point.
Do you want me to bring it up in Article 6? Because that's the local share of the permitting for the new one? Because I can do it then, but it seems like a waste of time to not just do it now.
Well, no, because I want to focus on getting Article 5 voted on and not confuse the matter. Yes, Mr. Snyder, the floor is yours.
First question I would have is, what is the current balance in the Airport Enterprise Fund?
I'd have to confirm with town finance director, but it's north of $500,000, probably 580-ish is the last I remember, so.
And this is an environmental assessment. What types of activities is the airport doing in terms of environmental preservation?
We are a national heritage area for endangered species birds. We have 3 endangered species that we protect that land for them. We have some specific mowing regimens that we allow for those birds to nest and create offspring. We're in the process of trying to figure out ways to increase our revenue via solar. I've been looking into replacing all of our runway, or our ramp lights with LEDs. I mean, when it comes to, more specifically, did you have any more specific environmental?
Well, the other thing
issues?
I would be concerned about is planes taking off and going round and round and back and forth at that school. It sounds to me like they may be using a lot of fuel and a lot of air pollution.
I can't speak to the specifics on the air pollution. I know that we have fueling plans and things in place at the airport that if there are spills or anything like that, we contain all the spills. They are reported to the EPA. If there's an airplane crash and there's more than 10 gallons that are spilled, we have to report that. So we do have stormwater plans in place and stuff like that, or spill plans in place. I apologize.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, Mr. Lally, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Has there been any recent noise studies done at the airport?
Like FAA-funded noise studies?
I don't care who funds it. Have there
Yeah,
been any
there's
noise?
we've never been required to do a noise study via the FAA, so we have not done a noise study, an official noise study at the airport.
Have there been any noise abatement plans or studies done at the airport to perhaps suggest different flight patterns that might have a lower impact on the neighborhood?
In the past, there have, and we have pretty extensive noise abatement. If you were to go on our website, it's pretty extensive noise abatement. When it comes to the areas of concern, if I could speak to that, that's in an area where the airplanes, they climb to 850 feet straight out, and then they turn. So I'm talking about West Plymouth specifically.
Are there different noise abatement configurations for each of the runways?
Correct. Well, there's noise-sensitive areas, and then we ask certain aircraft of certain type to do certain things when they depart.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Howard, the floor is yours.
Does the airport environmental assessment include noise considerations?
The EA Phase 1 did, yes.
And have those results been made available to the public?
I believe through the environmental monitor, yes, they have been.
So is it available through the airport office itself?
I don't have that document. I don't have that final document because technically that document isn't finished yet because we're working on the Phase 2. So once that document is finalized, I'd have that on
Is the draft available to the public?
I'd have to ask
So
our
the answer is
engineers.
no.
As of right now, no, it's not.
Okay. Does the airport environmental assessment include the impact of leaded fuels?
Not specifically.
So the answer is no.
Correct.
What actions have you taken over the last 30 days to address the concerns of the neighbors?
Just to the chair, I think we're getting into the point where Mr. Dunn's question.
Again, I
right,
want to
so-
stay on topic with Article 5. We are approving or recommending to town meeting to approve $1,099 to complete the environmental assessment. We are,
Until the airport addresses the concerns of the environment, I am concerned that we should not be approving Articles 5 and 6, and we'll vote accordingly. Thank you.
With all due respect, Article 5 is finishing the environmental assessment.
right.
All due respect.
It's about an assessment, not about making changes, but this is why I wanted to stay on topic. I mean, I understand there are legitimate concerns. Nobody is disputing that. But this funding needs to be used to complete an environmental assessment. What comes from that, if there's action past that, that's after. But I think the request, it needs to be approved so that this environmental assessment can be the first step. If you want change, I think the assessment needs to be done. Is that correct? I mean, if there's,
Yeah, I mean, the assessment's already been underway, and we want to finish that. Like you're saying, if town meeting doesn't want to appropriate the money for the design and permitting through our enterprise fund, I mean, that's the decision they can make. It's just, there's multiple stepping stones to get to where we ultimately would like to be, but, yeah.
so if town meeting rejects Article 5, and does that mean you're in the middle of an environmental assessment that cannot be completed?
It could be completed.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cardillo? Yes.
How would it
Mr.
be
Dunn.
completed if the funding doesn't come through?
Could pay for the remainder out of our operating budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dunn, would you like to make a motion to approve Article 5?
So moved.
Thank you. And Ms. Butler, would you please second that motion?
Second.
Any discussion on Article 5? Ms. Butler, your hand was up first. The floor is yours.
I'm not sure I totally understand this process, but it seems that we have residents who have legitimate concerns. And it seems that they're just being totally ignored and questions aren't being answered. And I feel that this has to be an equal give and take. They have questions, they should be answered. You're coming to us looking for money or funds and ignoring the people that are around the airport. So I don't agree with that. I feel that they should have their questions answered. If I lived there, I'd want answers to these questions. As a person
Could I
in this
respond to that quickly?
town, I would like an answer.
There is public comment at each one of our commission meetings. The people that are sitting in the audience today have been into those meetings and have had voiced their concerns at those meetings. The list of questions that have been sent to us, I would say a lot of those have been answered at those meetings, so I just want to say that.
Okay, it was indicated to me that the questions were not answered.
We can go one by one and we can see if they have been answered or not, but I feel as though we have been responding at those public meetings to their questions directly.
Can we ask them if, can you give me an example of a question that was asked and answered?
Can I have a point of order? I think we're in
Okay.
discussion now,
Yeah,
not
we are.
questions.
Okay,
We
sorry.
are.
You're
We're
right.
past that.
Past that, okay.
Okay. Ms. Richards, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think I'm going to stick with Article 5. And with respect to Mr. Cardillo's answer to funding, my response to that would be, if he can find the funding in his operating budget, then he should do so. So I will be voting no on Article 5.
Any other points of discussion? No? All right, hearing and seeing none, we will take, oh, I'm sorry, I did not see your hand. Ms. O'Connor, raise your hand a little higher to get over Mr. Snyder's head.
I was a little, can I get a point of clarification?
You can try, I'm
Or
not sure
try.
that you'll get that, but
So, if I can attempt. So, it's my understanding that this is, the goal of this funding is to get a more thorough environmental study. That's the goal.
That's correct, yes.
And if it can come, if the funding can come from your operating budget, if this were not to move forward, it can happen anyway. Is that what
I
I'm
guess
understanding?
financially, yes.
Okay, thank you.
it's just that when you move money from free cash, you need to have town meeting approval to do that. I see Ms. Richards, the floor is yours.
And just a clarification for all of my colleagues, free cash is not free. As we all get reminded of frequently. And not that I don't support finishing the environmental assessment, because I think, you know, if we're gonna find out that this is not good environmentally, then you should go forward. But again, if you already have the money, then good, then you should pay for it. And I'm anxious to vote on Article 6 as well. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, you're going to have to wait in your anxiety for a few more minutes. Okay, any other discussion on Article 5 before we vote? The vote is to amend Article 9A30 of the 2022 April annual town meeting to increase the local share of the airport environmental assessment by $1,099 as previously amended to a new total of $19,849. Okay, Ms. Butler, how do you vote?
I vote no.
And Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Green?
No.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lally?
Yes?
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti? Can't hear you, Mr. Malaguti.
Well, the other option,
I'm sorry? Mr. Malaguti, say again, please.
yes.
Thank you. It's a yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Richards?
No,
Mr. Snyder?
No.
And Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
So 7 in favor, 5 opposed, and 0 abstentions. The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends to town meeting that they approve Article 5, which brings us to Article 6. And so this article is to amend Article 9A47 of the Annual Town Meeting 2023. The Airport Commission is requesting to amend that Article A47, Runway 6/24 Design and Permitting. The Airport Commission is requesting to increase the amount originally requested, $480,000. The local share is $24,000 to $680,000, which would bring the local share from $24,000 to $34,000. The Airport Commission's local share would be increased by $10,000. A little bit of the background on this. The cost increase is due to the FAA requiring additional design elements for the FAA-owned NAVAIDS, sorry if I mispronounced that, $35,000, as well as the FAA now requiring a new AGIS, and according to Mr. Cardillo, it's the Airport Geographic Information System survey be performed as a part of the design phase. The only additional unknown and that's $100,000 that's been estimated by an engineer at the airport, is any requirements as a result of the final environmental assessment approval, such as groundwater monitoring or any other testing that may be required. So for context, the nav aids is short for navigational aids, which is there's the different nav aids allow the aircraft to fly from one point to another without any visual references at all. When people talk about a pilot, quote, flying on instruments, part of that flying will be navigated with reference to the nav aids, and it's especially good in bad weather. So to give you a little bit of background on this. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cardillo to answer any questions or give a presentation.
No, you covered it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Mr. Dunn.
Same question as the first time. What do you have to say about lack of communication, about noise when it's not supposed to be there, about pollution? And I have a question that I think I'd like to answer first, which is, why are you guys not tracking how many planes are landing or taking off from the airport?
So most of the airports around the country, 95% of them are like Plymouth Airport. We're just a public use airport. We are not required by FAA or by MassDOT or by local to track any of that. With that said, we've had 2 separate systems, and we just implemented a new one about a month ago. The first system was called a guard system, which we used a common traffic advisory frequency at the airport, and based on the amount of times people talk on that, it uses an algorithm to figure out the number of uses at the airport or number of operations at the airport. We've recently upgraded to one that uses the ADS-B data, as well as CTAF data to give us a little bit more accurate numbers. It gives us runway use numbers, aircraft type, stuff like that. So even though we're not required to, we are actually putting systems in place to start to collect that data.
Thank you. And do you have any response to the residents with their talking about lack of communication and about people not following the noise abatement regulations that are in place? And if so, if there is a plan by the airport to address these concerns and stop that from happening?
I'll start with the noise. When a noise complaint comes in, we log it. We do our due diligence on the back end by going and listening to the radio, looking at any kind of ADS-B data and stuff like that. And if there was a safety or a safety issue or anything like that, or there was somebody was not complying with federal aviation regulations, from our opinion, we would talk to the pilot. When it comes to the noise abatement, especially those operating hours, I know Mrs. Hanlon talked about a couple of jet doing touch and goes at a late hour, and then a flight school doing touch and goes as well. Our noise abatement at this time, not saying it might not change in the future with the help of the CAC that we're developing, is that there are no touch and goes between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. So touch and go is exactly what it sounds like. A plane lands on the runway and just goes. What we ask for people to do at night is they do a full stop taxi back. So what they would do is they'd land on the runway, pull off. There's another piece of pavement next to the runway that they would taxi back on, and they take off again. That night, both those aircraft did do that. They did do the full stop taxi backs. I talked to the King Air pilot, which was the jet aircraft she was talking about. He was doing it. What has to happen for a pilot to fly at night legally is to carry passengers is that they have to, in the last 90 days, have had 3 takeoffs and landings, an hour after civil twilight. So at that time in the middle of the summer, civil twilight, an hour after civil twilight is right around the time that Mrs. Hanlon was talking about. So that jet pilot went up, did his 3 full stop taxi back landings, and then went back and put the plane away so he could legally fly passengers at night on an upcoming trip that he wasn't sure if it was going to take off before or after sunset. So he was just staying legal. It was the same with the other aircraft that she was speaking of. It was a smaller training aircraft. So they were just doing their night currency is what it's called. And sorry, if you wanted to, was there more?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that exchange. Ms. Butler, the floor is yours.
Can you tell me, why did the FAA require additional design elements? Can they change designs while it's in process?
Sorry, with the nav aids, is that what you're talking about?
I guess, the cost due to the FAA requiring additional design elements.
Yeah, so we had actually done, so we did what's called a reimbursable grant with the FAA to initially do this design, to try and figure out, what they're speaking to is called a glide slope. So we have what's called an ILS, an instrument landing system, the glide slope. There's an array that gives you your horizontal, the glide slope gives you your vertical. When you put those together, it brings you right down to the runway. We're talking about the glide slope on this one. And that glide slope, because the end of the runway is moving, that glide slope has to move. What happened is in that initial design, they didn't cover all they needed to cover, so this is that $35,000 is to do a little bit more design on that from the FAA side.
Okay, can I ask another question?
You may.
Okay, regarding the flight school, and I know that some of the residents have said that the flight school just goes up and goes round and round and round and round, and then next one comes up and goes round and round and round. Is it possible to have them work in separate areas so as not to disturb the same people over and over?
So the runway use is based on the weather, so based on the wind. If the wind's coming out of a certain direction, that's the runway they use. Primarily at the airport, we use runway 6, which if you're thinking of, these numbers are compass directions, so 090 or 90 is east, so most of the wind's coming out of the east, so they're going to be flying on runway 6. So most of our operations, probably about 60 or 70% out of the year, are on that runway. So if the weather or the wind does shift and we're there to notice it, we can advise them to do it. But at the end of the day, I can only advise them. I'm not an air traffic controller. And me advising them, that also shifts liability onto myself as the airport manager. Something that if I was to advise somebody to do something unsafe and they ended up doing something and getting hurt or anything like that, I don't want to be the responsible one for having that happen.
Okay, so this is a private school then?
It's a private business.
Private business, okay. So that, I assume you get money from them?
I do. We get land lease from them and revenue on the fuel, but
Okay, so that it's possible that you could say, gee, you wouldn't be, could you possibly go someplace else to fly tomorrow or the next day so you're not disturbing the same people?
we've had conversations, so we can work towards it together, I guess. But
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Ms. Richards, I saw your hand first. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As I look at the see it, click it, fix it on the town's website,
Yeah.
I see that the airport concerns are not on there.
I had talked to the IT department about that. We were thinking about implementing something like that, or we were going to try and implement something through our website as well.
Okay.
So-
I would suggest putting it on here, because this is where town residents make their complaints.
Yeah.
My understanding of the airport is that even though it's the town owns it, the town runs it, even though it is an enterprise funding proposition,
Yeah.
the town runs it.
The commission runs it, who are elected by the select board.
Okay.
So under
They're
Chapter 90,
appointed.
Mass
They're
General.
appointed by the select board.
Correct.
It's town property. It's run by the town, by people who are appointed by the town, correct? Okay.
Yeah, under Mass General Law, Chapter 90, yes.
So it's a town-run entity.
It's a municipal airport, yes.
Okay. So I would put that on the town's nuisance or town issue part of the website, so that you and we and the, everybody who governs the town can monitor and track all of the nuisance complaints. And they don't just go to the airport and the airport says, okay, it goes in the circulation bin. This way we have transparency. Transparency is a big word and a very popular word these days. And that is, I think, something that the residents in West Plymouth, I was a resident in West Plymouth growing up, and we would all like to have transparency. And, when you said that you talked to the school about it, that's something you can probably have a discussion about. I would think that you should have had that discussion a long time ago to probably try and abate these issues. So I guess, my last question, other than, where these complaints go, is if we recommend to town meeting the funding, or if we don't recommend the funding, do you have that in your budget
No.
to cover that? Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Lawler, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little confused, but that's okay. We'll work it out. So, Article 6 is all about funding, basically, adding more safety to the airport?
So the permitting is for the 351-foot extension, which would add safety to the airport. Yes, I guess that's the answer. Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So we don't, the FAA used to do design build, so you'd get the money, you design it and build it in the same grant. They don't do that anymore, so we design and permit it before we get the funding to actually build it.
Okay, so.
So that's why it's separated.
So just simply saying that Article 9A47, that part of the funding is to improve safety within the airport, right? Right? Am I getting this wrong? Help me.
The original article?
Yeah.
It's the same, so we're just amending that original article, which is to increase the safety, yes.
Increase the safety of the airport.
Yes.
Okay. So why would you want to vote that down? I don't understand. Yeah,
It's a foot we're talking
I understand, but it adds safety to the,
It means that they can put more fuel on the plane.
I'm not getting, something I'm not getting here. Mr. Chairman, can you help me out?
Yeah, so, we're still in the explanation stage, so you can ask Mr. Cardillo to explain to you what the extra foot means.
Yeah, why don't you explain that to me then?
So the extra foot?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the 5,001 for a big thing for our users is a lot of insurance companies and things like that. It's 5,000 or greater, stuff like that. When it comes to being able to operate and their insurance premiums and things like that. But yeah, it's not. Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
so it's just that I just don't understand, why would you not vote for this to add safety to the airport?
And can I just add that it's not going to change the classification of the airport in any way? The airport is still going to be a B2 airport. It operates, B2 is designed on its wingspan and approach speed. So we're not changing the environment at the airport in any way to attract any other aircraft other than the ones we already have at the airport.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go over to Mr. Snyder, and then Ms. O'Connor, and then over to Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quick question. The 351-foot extension on the runway, will that allow any additional aircraft to land and take off there that can't do it right now?
Like I just said, we're not changing the design class of the airport.
But you're adding footage to the runway.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
does that change at all, as I asked, does that allow any additional aircraft that can't land or take off now?
It wouldn't
go
service
there?
any other aircraft that don't already service the airport.
Okay,
now.
that's all I want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're talking about two different issues. I think the issue of expansion and having larger jets coming in versus what this article is about. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about the end result when I'm just talking about the design and permitting. Is that what your question was? Like, we're talking about the construction, not the actual design permitting.
Is that clear?
No.
Okay.
What
Ask for
end
clarity.
result are we talking about here now? If we're not talking about this particular article, what end result are you talking about?
The end result of having the 5,001 feet, the construction, I guess is what I'm saying, is the construction grant or the construction, asking town meeting for construction. We're just permitting and designing it right now. So I guess, yeah,
At the end, when this is all done,
yeah,
you're not going to be able to put any different type of aircraft in there than you can right now, right?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. O'Connor, the floor is yours.
I don't mean to be snarky with this question, but this might, just piggybacking off of that. So why do the neighbors have this concern that expanding the runway is going to increase traffic or allow for bigger planes or more full planes to land? Like, where is their worry stemming from? If you don't mind, maybe.
I can't answer that. I can't speak for them. I don't want to speak for them. If they want to speak for it, they can.
It feels
but-
like important for us to understand where that's coming from, because we all are concerned about that. So I don't know. Can get that clarification at some point. I don't know.
No, I would allow one person to come up, and I will give you a couple of minutes. But this is really not the forum for.
It'll be quick. Apparently, I didn't do a good job explaining. Is the why 5,001 feet. Currently, we're not saying it's going to bring larger jets in. It's going to, right now, the two jets that are too big for the airport, they can only take off with 30% payload. So it doesn't make it good for all these corporate private jets because they come in, they can travel around the world with people, payloads. It's going to allow them to carry more fuel and people. Thus, the confusion, Mr. Lowley, I think it was, is the whole thing that got me involved. I'm an engineer. Wait a minute, you want to increase safety, but you're going to allow the jets that are there to carry more, almost twice as much more fuel. How is that safer than we have today? It's the corporate private jet category. It will be advertising they can come in. More of them.
I'm already, hold on. All right, Ms. O'Connor, would you like to follow that up, or are you okay?
I was just wondering if you want to answer that for us. If you have a response to that.
I would say the only thing that, when we talk about the increase in numbers, we don't have a crystal ball, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But we did, in the process of doing the master plan, looked at the increase in operations. That was also sent to and approved by the FAA. So it's not just the commission going out there and saying it's going to be X amount of jets or X amount of percentage. It goes to a higher power and is actually approved and gone through the vetting process up there. So they agree that by increasing this runway length, it wouldn't increase the amount of jet operations overall. Over the next 20 years, it goes from, let's see, sorry. It would go from, in 2021, or sorry, my numbers are, this is the wrong, I apologize. Yeah, the B2 category would be an increase of 1.8%, which would be 1,222 operations more in the year 2041. So, I mean, do the math on that. It's 3 operations a day, a little less than 3 operations a day. So.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Green, I promised I'd come back to you.
Yeah, I just need clarification, because 1 foot has been quoted a couple times, and then 351 feet has been thrown about. Is it 1 foot extension or 351?
351.
Okay, just for the record, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lally, the floor is yours. Okay.
Excuse me, I'll do that again with the mic on. I'd like to move this article
Thank you.
so we can move into discussion.
Okay, and Mr. Lawler, could you please second that motion?
I second the motion.
All right, we have a first from Mr. Lally, and that has been seconded by Mr. Lawler. We are currently in discussion. And Mr. Lally, you can lead us off.
So I'll start out by saying that in a former life, I was an air transport pilot. I was a flight instructor. I worked as a lineman at an airport for about 6 or 7 years in my early career. So in the 3 sound clips that you played for us today, the loudest from my, I'll just say untrained ear, were the propeller-driven airplanes, and the jets have certainly gotten much quieter. I think a runway length of about 5,000 feet is fairly standard for today, and what will restrict the length of operations typically is the insurance departments for corporate flight departments. So, but I think the focus in terms of the flight if I listen to what you've said, and if I listen to what's been said at Springtown meeting, the concern is around the flight operations of the flight school, and they're noisy. They can be. And from my perspective, the Airport Commission has had a fairly deaf ear into talking about the studies around noise abatement and what can be done to do that, whether it's curfews on operations or things like that. I intend to vote for this motion because I think it's a good improvement to the airport. And I think, yes, it may increase. You know, what's going to govern the size of the jets operating out of the airport is going to be the maximum takeoff weight. And what's going to govern the operations of aircraft landing at the airport is going to be the maximum landing weight. But the 351 feet is a good safety margin. But I think this is just talking about the runway length extensions, a red herring for the fact that there are noise issues at this airport that I think need to be addressed, either through a change in operations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an uncontrolled airport. And that means that there's no FAA tower at the airport that can dictate what runways are going to be in use. And so I think there has to be some fair amount of study, and I would love to see, as part of the environmental assessment, what the noise measurements are in typical operations for what seems to be the 624 configuration the preferred runway, if you will, the calm wind runway, to help see if there's ways to mitigate the impact of noise abatement or some change in the departure patterns, particularly in touch-and-go operations. And this is a very basic part of getting your license. You spend the first few hours learning how to maneuver the airplane, and you spend a couple of hours after that doing literally, you land, you take off again. And given the fact that you're landing and taking off and probably beginning your takeoff roll midway through the airport, you're going to be lower over the houses. So it may be that touch and goes need to be curtailed during certain hours out of respect for the neighborhood. But so, I would like to see that as part of the environmental assessment or some study around noise abatement. But I'm planning to vote for the runway extension because I think it's a necessary safety improvement. But I am disappointed with the fact that, from my perspective, the Airport Commission has not been listening to the neighbors and taking an aggressive stance in trying to address the concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lally, for that education. And Mr. Howard, the floor is now yours.
I'm disappointed in the chair that I had additional questions that I would have liked to have asked the presenter and was not given the opportunity. But I would point out that in the email provided to the ANF members, in the email dated August 26, 2024, it was pointed out that any additional unknown requirements as a result of the final EA approval, such as groundwater monitoring or other testing that may be required, are not included in this estimate. So it may be that they'll be coming back to this committee yet again for additional funds.
I would think I understood that you had added in 100,000 for those possibilities.
Correct.
And
that was based on
it was
my
based on an
engineer's
engineer's assessment,
Yeah.
but it's, it may or may not be all used. But they put that number in, I believe, so that you wouldn't have to come back before this committee and town meeting asking for more money if it went over.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other comments and discussion before we go to a vote? Okay, Mr. Green, the floor is back to you.
I'd echo the comments of my colleagues of how this has become a massive issue, honestly. You don't have 4 people come to these meetings just to hang out on a Wednesday night. They have serious concerns, and if I lived there, I would be pissed. I would be up there with them. I can tell you that right now. I have a hard time throwing money at this project that's already a massive issue with our citizens and just going down this road that we're going to do this no matter what. For that reason, I can't support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Green. Any further discussion? I see Ms. Richards' hand. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. And I will echo my colleague, Mr. Green, and I will also thank Mr. Lally for sharing his vast knowledge on the subject. I really appreciated that. However, with the apparent non-communication with the residents, with the apparent I want to say, just disregard for the residents. I too will be voting no for that reason. Although the article is already, done, this is an amendment, but I'm going to vote no on principle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Richards. Mr. Malaguti, I see your digital hand. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I agree with my last 2 colleagues on there. While I was on town meeting when the original vote happened, there was a lot of discussion, not just from the members, but also from the neighbors and Ms. Lentang as well too, about the cooperation of the airport commission for public outreach, not just with the Plymouth and Carver neighbors, but as the entire community. I myself, from the discussions that have been through that last meeting and through this meeting tonight and the countless emails that we've received, that I don't believe there has been the outreach that has been necessary to negate any of these concerns or complaints. While I do understand that there has been some issue because we do have funding from the FAA and the state in regards to this project, I believe that this project still hasn't met the quota threshold, in my opinion, for the public outreach that was even asked for during select board meetings leading up to the last vote and when this came before them again. So in my opinion, I cannot support this, even though there are timelines and constraints on it. I think that there needs to be better oversight for the community, so I'll be voting no on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malaguti. Ms. Butler, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. I feel that there's been very little cooperation with the airport and the town. I feel that answers to our questions have not been fully explained. It felt like it was, we're giving a little bit of an answer, but not really answering your question. So for that reason, I will vote no.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Butler. Mr. Lawler, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lally, for helping out and helping me a little bit understand a little bit more about what this is. I believe that there are 2 distinct issues here. One that is very concerning in the fact that the airport certainly is not listening to the residents. I can't believe that's happening. And the other issue is that the airport extension is necessary for safety. But again, very concerning that that these residents are here and there is no attention being given to the people that have legitimate complaints. That is concerning. I am going to vote yes, but this type of attitude I don't think is necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawler. Any further? Somebody needs to silence that phone, please. Okay, seeing and hearing no further discussion, we are going to vote on Article 6 to amend Article 9A47 from the Annual Town Meeting 2023. Ms. Butler, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Dunn?
No.
Mr. Green?
No.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lally?
Yes?
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
No.
Ms. O'Connor?
No.
Mr. Pizarro?
No.
Ms. Richards?
No.
And Mr. Snyder?
No.
And Ms. Tompkins?
No.
We have 2 yes and 10 against and 0 abstentions. The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends that town meeting reject Article 6. And I thank you, Mr. Cardillo, for your time in answering our questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Bringing up Article 14, Eversource easement, Stevens Field, for Eversource to run above ground and underground electrical utilities into Stevens Field. And I have on Zoom Mr. Nick Faella. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He is the Parks and Forestry Superintendent. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Advisory and Finance Committee. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, pretty good. If you could speak up just a little bit more, that would be great.
Okay. I might get awkwardly close to my screen if that's okay with you guys.
That's okay.
So
We'll step back.
Thank you. This is pretty simple. It's more of a housekeeping article. It's exactly what you said. It's just to allow Eversource to come onto Stevens Field property, town property, to access their utilities if they need to make any repairs or updates or anything of that nature.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Faella as housekeeping? Yes, Mr. Snyder, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this a generic type of thing, or is this for a specific placement of wiring or some kind of?
So everything's already in place. There was a license agreement that was approved by the Board of Selectmen. The license agreement, however, would need to be renewed annually. So we're doing an easement to avoid that. But basically, all the electrical components are already in place. This would just allow them to maintain them.
Okay, I was worried they were going to put wires under the pickleball courts and melt them or something, so, okay.
No, we won't do that.
Would that help your game,
Actually,
Mr. Snyder?
believe it or not, there are wires, but it's for post-tension. They're not electrical.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Faella? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Tompkins, would you be so kind as to offer a motion to approve Article 14, Eversource easement?
So moved.
Thank you. And Mr. Snyder, would you care to second that motion?
Second.
We have a first from Ms. Tompkins, a second from Mr. Snyder. Any discussion about Article 14, Eversource easement? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, we will go to vote. Ms. Butler, how do you vote on Article 14?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lally?
Yes.
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends to town meeting to approve Article 14 by a vote of 12 for, 0 against, 0 abstention. Thank you
Thank you
so
all.
much, Mr. Fallow.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're at Article 33. Okay, that answers my question. So, our committee, it has been recommended by council that we take no motion, no action, so that takes care of 33. And, excuse me. Okay, Article 30, citizens petition amend zoning. That petitioner has removed that article, and so there will be no motion and no action on that either. Okay, which takes us to old, new, and other business. So we heard last month, and we rejected an article on the vernal pools. There was some concern, and I think it was a fair amount of concern, about the definition of a vernal pool. Could it just simply be a puddle in somebody's driveway, or is it something more? And I believe a number of you voted against it because there was seemingly no clarity in the definition. We have since received a definition of a vernal pool. The select board voted to approve Article 8, subject to the addition of the definition of vernal pool being added to the bylaw. It was not included when we reviewed it, though we did discuss it at length. I believe one of our members who voted against it would like to bring it up for reconsideration, and I will turn the floor over to Mr. Lawler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I would like to have that particular article under reconsideration because the definition that was, definitions that have been updated are very clear. They have definitely changed the way that I'm thinking, so I'd like that to be under reconsideration.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Lawler. We have a second motion from Mr. Dunn. Do we have any discussion amongst us? Yes, we have. I'll go to Ms. Richards first. No, we're going to take ladies over gentlemen at this point. Ms. Richards.
Thank you. So, although I read the definition of a vernal pool and I knew what it was ahead of time, my question and my problem with it is that the federal government and state government already has legislation in place to protect vernal pools. Specifically, Title V of the Mass Environmental Code, Section 401 of the Federal Clean Water Act, the Mass Surface Water Quality Standards, Mass Forest Cutting Practice Act, to name a few. Most of the towns in Massachusetts, in fact, most of the towns that have vernal pool legislation are all 100 feet in addition to the state. So I'm unclear as to why the town of Plymouth would want to go 200 feet. In going through some plans at the registry, there are many, especially in my development, there are many drainage easements and drainage runoff areas that were created when the developments were created, and they're small pond. They're small areas of water. Just pools, they're called. So those are now, almost 60 years later, vernal pools. However, they are within, they're about 100 feet from somebody's home. So if they wanted to build an accessory dwelling unit, a detached garage, or something of that effect, they would not be able to under this bylaw. So for that purpose, I would not be in favor of it, and that is why I initially voted no and not because of the definition. Thank you.
Fair enough. All right, Mr. Dunn, the floor is yours. I mean, I'm sorry, Mr. Green.
I was
He's
like,
in
oh,
your
I
head
really
over
have to
there.
say
Yeah.
something now.
I scared both of you.
I originally voted against this because I honestly thought that there was no definition here. I know there was some very high-level language about what a vernal pool may or may not be, but I think what is in there now clarifies my concerns, so I will support this. I do have some concerns about 200 feet, but if it's existing practice for Concom, then that's their area of jurisdiction. I'm okay with that, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Lally, the floor is yours.
So are we voting on the motion to reconsider or the motion to approve the article?
First we reconsider, and then we put it on the floor to
All right,
vote.
well, I plan to vote for reconsideration.
Okay. Any other discussion on reconsideration? Hearing and seeing none, let's vote on reconsideration of Article 8. Ms. Butler, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lally?
Yes.
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Bizzarro?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
That's unanimous, 12-4, 0 against, and 0 abstentions. We are now reconsidering. We will go to Mr. Lally.
So I move that I move to approve the article as amended.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Connor, would you like to second that motion to approve Article 8?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a first by Mr. Lally, a second by Ms. O'Connor. Any discussion about approving Article 8, or are we discussed out at this point? We're voting for the 200 feet. Okay, hearing and seeing no discussion, we are going to be voting on Article 8. Ms. Butler, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lally?
Yes.
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Bizzarro?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
No.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
And Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
The Advisory and Finance Committee, upon reconsideration, recommends the town meeting approve Article 8 by a vote of 11 in favor, 1 opposed, and 0 abstentions. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Any other old, new, and other business? Hearing and seeing none.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
I'm concerned with these articles that appear to have been properly submitted for town meeting, that are being recommended by council for no action, no vote by ANF. Would it be possible to get the moderator to come and speak to ANF and make it clear as to why we're not able to, it appears that we're not able to advance these articles?
I could make that suggestion and request of the moderator, yes?
That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn. the floor is
I
yours.
just want to thank Mr. Howard for his point and second his point. I think we've had an absurd amount of articles ruled as out of order that don't seem out of order at all to me. Mr. Donato's back there and had an article on public comment that was supposed to be a bylaw. It is a bylaw. There's no reason for it to be ruled out of order. That and a number of other articles that I think have been incorrectly ruled out of order. I would make a motion to hear them myself, but I don't know if that's in order, so I'm going to shut up for now, but I would like the moderator come in and explain his reasoning, because I think that the reasoning of town council is wrong in most of these instances.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Mr. Dunn. Mr. Snyder, the floor is now yours.
I agree with the two previous speakers, Mr. Chairman, and I also think we should have town council come in as well, because I would like to really hear the law on this stuff, because a couple of these are pretty obvious that they're legally done and they should be considered.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Snyder, for your comments as well. Mr. Lawler, the floor is yours.
I also agree with my courts here that for an entity to tell a trusted board not to take consideration on a function that is ours is concerning. So I would like to have some sort of explanation as to what this is all about. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Any other new, old? Miss O'Connor, the floor is yours.
Just to give more strength, I agree.
Okay, now it's got the strength. Before it didn't, but now it does. Appreciate that. Okay, any other strength in this group? No? All right.
Yes, I would make that motion as well.
We got more strength coming from my right. Okay.
Well, I've been speaking a lot tonight, so why stop now?
Well, you've exceeded your speaking moments, so we're going to take those away from tomorrow. Okay, Mr. Green, I saw you were...
I was just going to say I agree, but I don't know if I need to get on the mic to do that, but thanks.
All right. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet? I'll get to the public. Hold on, we're still in old, new, and other business. All right, Ms. Tompkins,
I just,
please.
again, also support this.
All right, more weight. Wow. All right, Ms. I think you guys have made your point quite clear, so I will make the outreach, and we have a meeting next week on the 18th. Maybe we can get them to come there. We have some time before it gets to 11 o'clock. Okay, before we conclude, let's go to public comment. I do believe Mr. Donato would like, you are the public, so you are carrying the weight of the town on your shoulders right now, and we will give you your due time. So, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Al Donato, I didn't plan on speaking as I was at planning board. I just came in just to watch, but this matter of my article, so the public knows, Article 31, which was to have public comment, it would be a bylaw at all precinct caucuses. I was going to speak before the Select Board the other night in COPC, but they've had a very busy agenda. They were there till 11 o'clock. I do plan on speaking at some point, but to cut to the chase, on my article, because the moderator was looking for the bylaw to say bylaw in it. So really, it can come back again. But my issue with the Select Board would be process. I've served town meeting for 35 years in another community. Usually when we receive a warrant, it's been vetted already legally, and it's been vetted by the moderator. So if you read the protocol now set up by the Select Board, it's 3 pages, and it's pretty reasonable. So I would think that, and I wasn't notified, like I said the other night, till the other evening. So you would think that when it goes to print, that it is clear of that. So I think the Select Board has to kind of add that in there, that 2 weeks before or such and such. So that's where I'm at. I'm still pursuing it, and in closing at COPC, in the meantime, I'm going to ask that precinct chairs, as a courtesy, have public comment during their caucuses while we wait on this. I do have the signatures, it's legal, it's just a matter of getting through the the bureaucracy. Thank
Okay,
you.
and we want to work with you.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world.
No, I'm confident we will have a good resolution for you.
Yeah, we'll get there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for coming out and watching us. Well, that too. Okay, seeing as there's no other public, I know this is Ms. Butler's favorite part of the meeting here, so I will let her make the motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
And Ms. Tompkins smiling over there, how about seconding the motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
Wow, to think we're going to get out before 11 o'clock is a miracle. Okay, we have a motion on the table by Ms. Butler to adjourn. It was seconded by Ms. Tompkins. And Ms. Butler, how do you vote on adjournment?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lally? Yes. Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Bizzarro?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Unanimous, 12 to 0 to 0 in favor of adjourning, and we will at 8:40 PM.